Over 1,500 years ago, with a devout heart, monk Tung Yao of the Northern Wei dynasty brought craftsmen with him to Wuzhou mountain outside Datong, and carved statues for the Buddha with simple tools. The huge statues and the exquisitely beautiful caves write a brilliant chapter in the process of syncretizing Buddhist art. This grand project concealed a beautiful wish of the builders to make the image of the Buddha as eternal as the mountain that encases it. But in the real world, nothing is eternal except time. Since their birth, the Yungang Grottoes have experienced destruction from both human and natural forces, war, theft, and sandstone weathering. Yungang Grottoes, this cultural treasure, has been relentlessly battered by time and abandoned in the desolate dust. At the beginning of the 20th century, Yungang was rediscovered. When the war ceased and the smoke of gunfire dissipated from China's land, Yungang threw a huge question mark to the people of today. How to preserve this ancient beauty? The gift of history. This is the Yungang Grottoes Museum. It is a novel, sunken building with an exhibition space of nearly 10,000 square meters, displaying relics from various periods of the Yungang Grottoes. Among these exhibited artifacts, there is one particularly special piece. This is a glass Buddha eye.
As a part of our museum's collection, it was returned from the United States in the 1980s. In the 1980s, Professor Su Bai, of the Department of Archaeology at Peking University, met an American archaeologist, Mr. Shi, during a visit to the United States. Mr. Shi was about to retire. He surveyed Yungang during the Republican period and purchased this eye at the price of $1 silver. Before his retirement, he decided to fulfill his wish and return the eye to China.
In 452 AD, the Northern Wei dynasty established by Xinbei people welcomed a new emperor, Talba Jun, Emperor Wenqing of the Northern Wei. Many scholars believe that during Talba Jun's reign, the eminent monk Tung Yao initiated the construction of the Yungang Grottoes. Today, the 5 caves numbered 16 to 20 are masterpieces left by Tung Yao. They are regarded as the fruits of Gandhara art in China. During the late Eastern Han Dynasty, monks from ancient India brought Buddhism to China along the Silk Road. Accompanying Buddhism were cave temples and statue art. These cave temples and statue art mainly originated from the Gandhara region, which is in today's Pakistan and Afghanistan. After Alexander's conquest in the 4th century BC, Gandhara became a colony of ancient Greece. And the Buddhist art that developed here naturally carried the strong influence of ancient Greek and Roman sculpture. When the Northern Wei dynasty encountered Buddhism, the Yungang Grottoes prospered and pushed Gandhara art to its peak in China. The flower of art also carries strong Greek influences. The Buddha statues still show traces of Greek facial features, and the robes are draped in the style of ancient Greek togas. Thinking from that perspective, it's likely that when the Yungang Grottoes were first built, the Buddha statues had no eyeballs. Most of the current eyeballs were added later.
Just like the Greek statues we see, like the statue of David that students draw. The eyes should be like that. These eyeballs were added after the Ming Dynasty.
No matter how the eyes are depicted, the Buddha's face looks peaceful and emotionless. For thousands of years, it has stood at the foot of Wuzhou Mountain, witnessing the rise and fall of this holy land of Buddhism, helplessly observing repeated plundering happening right under its nose. In 1902, Ito Chutta traveled through China and discovered the Yungang Grottoes. Since then, the world has learned about this artistic treasure trove in northern China. But the global sensation of the Yungang Grottoes also marked the peak of its theft and destruction. In the 1930s, a scholar named Chang Hui visited Yungang. After investigating, he realized the loss of the Buddha heads here was severe. According to his statistics, 96 stone Buddha heads were missing from Yungang Grottoes. To mark this, Chang Hui painted these statues with red paint. As time passed, the remaining red paint did not completely fade. It seems to be telling the story of past vicissitudes. The royal grottos, built over 1,500 years ago, welcome many visitors every day, who come to feel its profound history and cultural charm. Zhao Kunyu, a researcher at the Yungang Grottoes Research Institute, often climbs and inspects the caves of the Yungang Grottoes. His perspective on the cave statues is different from others. While most people admire the beauty of the caves, he focuses on the damage to the Buddha statues. For him, the history of the Yungang Grottoes and its suffering are intertwined. During an inspection of Cave 16, he noticed 3 broken holes on the north wall. There had once been statues here. So, where did those statues go? What did they look like? In 1907, a French archaeologist named Chavan visited the Yungang Grottoes and took a series of photographs. These are the earliest photographic records of the Yungang Grottoes. In 1925, Swedish art historian Osvald Sirent published the book, Chinese Sculpture from the 5th to the 14th Century, which also included many photos of the Yungang Grottoes. These historical photos played a crucial role in identifying the lost relics of Yungang. Zhao Kunyu discovered in Chavan's photos 3 statues in the middle layer of the north wall of Auxiliary Cave 1 to Cave 16. One is damaged, while the other 2 have one hand raised and the other on their knees. Their clothing was complicated. These 2 statues were intact when Osvald Sirent took the pictures at Yungang, but they were stolen shortly thereafter. From Osvald Sirent's photos, these bodhisattvas had lions on both sides, but now there are no traces of these lions in the cave, indicating that the statues were stolen in their entirety. Paris, New York, London, and Tokyo are known as the 4 major international cities. What sets Paris apart is its cultural temperament. A century ago, it was the center of European literature, music, art, dance, and fashion. Yet, this world-renowned city, the cultural capital, also has its dark side. Zhao Kunyu discovered that the Cernuschi Museum in Paris holds a stolen statue from the auxiliary cave of Cave 16 at Yungang. However, the lions that were carved off along with the statue have never been found again.
They removed the lions after the statue was brought there. This is secondary destruction.
The Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, the British Museum in London, and the Louvre in Paris are known as the three major museums in the world. Another stolen cross-ankled Bodhisattva statue, from the auxiliary cave of Cave 16 in Yungang Grottoes, is exhibited at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. A Bodhisattva statue displayed alongside it comes from Cave 27 of Yungang Grottoes.
This is Cave 27, on the upper part of its east wall. Axe marks are still visible today. A complete statue was stolen from here.
This is the Musée Guémet in France, famous for its collection of religious art from Eastern countries. And it has the largest collection of Asian art in Europe. In its collection is a statue, from Cave 30 of Yungang. Here, in Cave 30 of Yungang Grottoes, traces of theft can be seen everywhere. On the lower part of the east wall, a Buddha head has disappeared. On the upper part, where a standing retinue Buddha originally stood, there is now a more than 1 meter high hole. This is the original home of the statue, that is now in the Musée Guémet.
After being stolen, perhaps for convenience. During the theft, it was cut into 3 parts, likely also to facilitate transport, as the statue was quite large. Cuts are found on its head, wrist, and foot areas. You can see it was separated.
According to statistics compiled by Zhao Kunyu, Japan has the most stolen statues from the Yungang Grottoes. Many of these statues are from Cave 7 and Cave 8 of Yungang.
This one was originally a statue of demons when we got the picture. We didn't know what the situation was, or where it was located. We can't be sure of that, and we were at a loss. In Chavan's book, we occasionally found an image. On this picture, in this area, was a painting themed with dispelling the demons and ascending. On the main hall's east wall of Cave 8, surrounding the central seated Buddha are demon figures. They are trying to intimidate him from ascending. The demon figures are all depicted with wild hairstyles, holding various weapons and magical tools to threaten Shakyamuni.
A book published in Japan, called Fine Arts of the Six Dynasties, includes many stolen Yungang Grottoes statues in Japan. Such books often cause Zhao Kunyu much sorrow. So many Yungang artifacts are scattered around the world. It is difficult to count them all. Sometimes even the museums that hold them cannot confirm the true origins of these artifacts. Caves 1 and 2 of Yungang Grottoes are heavily affected by theft due to their more remote location and the collapse of the cave entrances. Almost no statues inside are left with their original faces intact. Overall, the theft of Yungang Grottoes statues mainly occurred between 1910 and 1929. In 1929, the national government of China publicly announced the loss of 96 Buddha heads. The stolen statues were mainly distributed in Japan, France, the United States, Germany, among others.
From the social context of China at the time, the theft of Buddha statues from cave temples had become a common phenomenon. Longmen Grottoes, Tianlong Mountain Grottoes in Shanxi, and Xiantungshan Grottoes in Hebei saw large numbers of Buddha heads stolen, leaving miserable scenes behind.
In 2010, Yungang Grottoes Research Institute published a set of exquisite postcards. The set, which includes 16 cards, shows 16 Buddha statues and heads, all of which can no longer be found in the current Yungang Grottoes.
The stolen statues are extraordinarily beautiful when removed from the caves. On the original site, it's hard to feel the beauty when there are so many statues there, but when we put a single statue in the picture, we'll feel the unimagined beauty. It's indescribable.
After 1949, the looting of Yungang Grottoes cultural relics finally came to an end. However, natural factors continue to cause damage to the caves. Cave collapses and sandstone erosion have left the Yungang Grottoes in a precarious state. Without large-scale restoration, this cultural treasure of humanity will cease to exist.
Yungang Grottoes' preservation condition back then was indeed quite concerning. I have seen in the literature that described it with 3 words: hanging stones everywhere. There were weathered, suspended rocks all around, and cracks were serious. Fragments of stones frequently fell.
In the 1950s, large-scale protection efforts began. The first priority was to reinforce the caves and statues. Zhang Junsai, a relic restorer from Shaanxi Institute of Cultural Relics and Archaeology, had studied under experts from the Palace Museum in Beijing. In his years of relic restoration work, he accumulated extensive experience. Back then, he contributed to the restoration of the nose of the large Buddha in Cave 20.
The nose had cracked and was in danger of falling off. Though still hanging there, it looked dangerous. If it falls, the nose will be ruined. I arrived in summer. At first, I didn't want to handle it, but later I was told that I had to at least check it. Then, I changed my mind. As a relic restoration practitioner, I can't stand leaving it like that. We used acetone and ethylene to clean out the decayed material, then applied glue and stuck it back in place. The next day, we sealed the seams and repaired the exterior. That's what we did back then.
In 1961, Yungang Grottoes were listed by the State Council among the first batch of national key cultural relics. That year, a trial restoration project for Yungang Grottoes began. Cultural relic protection workers conducted chemical grouting and bonding tests on the Buddha niches and heads in the pillars of Cave 1 and the front walls of Caves 10 and 11. They also carried out bonding on some stones that were about to fall. After 1964, the cultural heritage professionals applied techniques such as chemical grouting bonding, anchor rod pulling to the maintenance of more caves. Today, the Yungang Grottoes scenic area has a small memorial hall, which was built to commemorate Premier Zhou Enlai, who played an important role in the protection of the Yungang Grottoes. In September 1973, then French President Georges Pompidou visited China. On the 15th, Pompidou, accompanied by Premier Zhou Enlai, came to Yungang, entertaining the leader of a cultural powerhouse, France. With the profound historical and cultural landscape of Yungang Grottoes, probably was in full consideration of the preferences of the guest. At that time, the Yungang Grottoes were under restoration and were not fully open to the public. Premier Zhou and Pompidou visited mainly Cave 20, Cave 7, and Cave 5. The two leaders carefully examined the art of the Northern Way stone caves from over 1,500 years ago, asking about their history, artistic value, and preservation status.
After seeing the current state, The premier made a request to the leadership of the State Administration of Culture Heritage. The director said, "We have made a plan to resolve the stability of the Yungang Grottoes over the next 10 years. The premier said, 10 years is too long. It should be solved in 3 years.
Thus, the 3-year protection project, which was crucial for the Yungang Grottoes, began. This was the largest-scale restoration work for the Yungang Grottoes after 1949. Cave 20 is the most famous cave in Yungang. There was a collapse when the cave was first built. Before the 3-year project began, the bricks above the Buddha's head were barely hanging. Not only Cave 20, but also the main caves at Yungang, were all at risk of collapse due to severe weathering.
What we see today in the Yungang Grottoes is actually the result of the preservation efforts in the 1970s. The collapsed parts of the caves were reattached, and the cracks in the caves were bonded together, resolving the stability issues of the Yungang Grottoes on a fundamental level. This included a series of techniques, such as anchor rod pulling and epoxy resin bonding.
After the 3-year project, the stability issue of the grottos was largely resolved. The weathering of the caves then became the focus of preservation and maintenance. In 1993, a large-scale weathering treatment project began in the Yungang Grottoes. Since it coincided with the 8th 5-year plan of the national economy, this project became known as the 85 Preservation Project among the local relic conservation practitioners. Lu Jiwen has been researching the causes of weathering at Yungang Grottoes for many years. In his view, there are several reasons for the weathering, and water is the major cause.
When it rains, the rainwater falls on the top of the caves, and because the rock layers have natural cracks, the water seeps into the caves along these cracks. You see? Another factor is the relationship between temperature and humidity. In summer or fall, condensation occurs inside the caves. This can harm the caves. Condensation leads to efflorescence and accelerated weathering.
Originally, Yungang Grotto's exterior ground was much higher than inside. In the rainy season, water often flowed back into the caves. One of the tasks of this restoration work was to lower the ground level outside the caves. The areas before caves 1 to 4 over 3,800 square meters, and caves 7 to 20 over 6,000 square meters, were lowered, and drainage ditches were built. To coordinate with the lowering of the ground, archaeologists also conducted excavations, discovering statues from the Northern Wei, Tang, Liao, and Jin dynasties, as well as door stones, coins, and other relics, and even a dam before the Northern Wei Yungang Grottoes. This is a photo of Cave 20 from the 1930s. And this is what it looks like now. From the comparison, we can see that there was one more step before the Buddha. This step was exposed when the conservators were doing the ground lowering treatment in front of Cave 20 in the 1990s. Datong is located at the edge of the Lus Plateau, with an annual precipitation of only around 300 millimeters, but this amount of rain is enough to damage the grottos. Rainwater not only directly erodes cave walls, but also seeps in along the mountain cracks, eroding the Buddha statues. The Yungang Grottoes, situated on Wuzhou Mountain, with a thin soil layer above the rock, experience accumulated rainwater that gradually erodes the caves below. Its Cultural Relics Protection Department laid geotextiles beneath the soil layers, raised the low-lying water collecting areas, and directed atmospheric precipitation into the specially constructed drainage channels. This greatly reduced the rainwater seepage on the cave roofs. Protective cave eaves were widely built during the Northern Way period. And these eaves helped prevent rainwater from directly washing the caves, maintaining a relatively stable temperature and humidity, and reducing water damage. However, these eaves were later damaged, leaving only small holes in the rock walls. In the 8th year of Xuanji, Governor Tong Yangliang and others repaired the eaves of caves 5 and 6. After the repairs, 2 4-story wooden structures were left, with red columns and blue roofs, adding a magnificent view to the Yungang Grottoes. After the founding of the People's Republic of China, the remaining eaves were repaired and reconstructed twice. In recent years, traditional Buddhist hall eaves were built in front of caves 9 to 13, known as the Wuhua Caves.
For example, how to separate wooden components, meaning the columns from the underground ruins is a key issue we need to consider. Of course, the engineering quality of the structures themselves should also be considered. Another issue is the connection between the eaves and the caves themselves. With all things considered, over 100 projects have been done.
The 5 caves known as the Wuhua Caves are named for their exceptional luxuriousness of the Qing dynasty paintings. The statues in these caves are majestic, with intricate carvings and rich, colorful details, making them valuable resources in Northern Way architecture, sculpture, music, dance, and history studies. Over the years, the exposed stone walls and columns in front of the caves have suffered from rain erosion, wind, and sun exposure. The rock cracks at the Wuhua Caves are extensive, and the columns have been weathered and thinned, putting the caves at risk of collapse at any time. At the same time, the painted sculptures and murals inside the caves have also experienced efflorescence, hollowing, detachment, and peeling.
These 2 columns have gone through protection and restoration. In some places, you can see traces of sealing and grouting. In other places, we restored them to their original state, which you might not see clearly. In this section, we performed supportive protection, such as installing anchor rod. Using anchor rods, we reinforced the top to be solid and secure. Installing anchor rods from south to north. For caves 9 and 10, we installed 16 anchor rods. At the top, we can see the large lotus flower. That lotus flower had fallen, but we restored it by using anchor rods and bonding techniques to lift it back into place. This way, visitors can still see the large lotus flower.
Among the artistic masterpieces of the Yungang Grottoes, the least noticed might be the stones without statues. However, once these stones begin to weather, they demand a significant amount of time and effort from conservation workers. The workers have to carefully clean the salt from the cracks in the stones, and then use chemical materials to penetrate and reinforce the weathered layers. Finally, they must age the restored rocks, making them fully blend into their surroundings.
Every year, except during the freezing winter months, when the temperature is too low to work, we work every day.
Meanwhile, in the mural restoration room, staff are engaged in the daily tasks of patching, cleaning, and restoring murals damaged by weathering. Restoring murals is extremely difficult. Besides techniques dealing with efflorescence and peeling, preparing the substrate for the murals, such as the wall clay, is also not an easy task.
Take the clay for example. Making the clay is simple in concept, but now scientific methods test its composition, including the scales of clay sand, cotton, or wheat straw. Actually vary in different regions because the environment is different. So the old wisdom passed down by ancient craftsmen is a valuable, but hard to articulate resource.
Shaanxi Province, where Datong is located, has a long history and rich cultural traditions, with a variety of folk beliefs. This rich culture and the many temples here have produced many craftsmen, who make their living by repairing murals and sculptures in these temples. The craft has been passed down through generations, accumulating extensive experience.
The master-apprentice system, in fact, is the one that persists. Up until the 1980s, we still needed to build small temples, paint murals, or decorate the walls of houses in rural areas. These all thanks to the master-apprentice model.
These folk craftsmen may not have profound theoretical knowledge or formal schooling, but the valuable experience they gained through the master-apprentice system has also contributed to the protection of the Yungang Grottoes. The Cultural Relics Protection Department of Yungang Grottoes has learned from these folk artisans, combining their craftsmanship with modern, scientific restoration techniques. With the help of these craftsmen, the ratios of various components in the bonding and restoration materials were discovered through repeated comparison. Yungang Grottoes is located in Datong, China, in the coal-rich region of the lower reaches of the Shili River. The coal produced here is one of the main industries supporting Datong's economy. Coal dust has a certain adsorptive effect on sulfur dioxide and water in the air, creating an acidic environment on the cave surfaces that accelerates the weathering of the caves. People must strike a balance between heritage preservation and economic growth. Since the 1990s, industrial and economic growth has led to increasing traffic on National Highway 109, just 300 meters from the caves. Over 16,000 large coal trucks pass by daily, resulting in severe dust and gas pollution. The total suspended particles in the air exceed 80% of the national secondary air quality standard, and dust levels exceed 60% of the national secondary air quality standard. Dust threatens the statues in the Yungang Grottoes. The statue in Cave 19 is among the earliest large statues in the Yungang Grottoes, standing 16.8 meters tall. People may not be able to fathom that this giant Buddha, hidden inside an arched cave, was once covered in coal dust, caused by the secondary dust from coal trucks. Cave 6, dedicated by Emperor Xiaowen to his grandmother, Empress Dowager Feng, is considered one of the most exquisite caves in Yungang Grottoes. But 20 years ago, its brilliance was also covered by coal dust. The Buddha in Cave 18, known for the thousands of small Buddhas on its robe, is said to represent Talba Tao, a Northern Wei emperor who persecuted Buddhism. It is estimated that in the 1980s, the robe of this great Buddha accumulated over 1,000 grams of coal dust per square meter each year. To preserve the Yungang Grottoes, the then State Planning Commission and the provincial government decided to reroute National Highway 109. In 1998, a coal transport railway line was built to divert coal trucks 1,500 meters away from the caves. The original road was then designated as the Yungang Tourism Line. This road rerouting was a first in post-1949 heritage preservation history. After the rerouting, the environment around Yungang Grottoes improved significantly, especially the air quality, which now meets the national secondary standard. However, for heritage preservation, this is still not the ideal condition. Yungang Grottoes' changed environment requires the overall improvement of the entire Datong area. Datong has abundant and high-quality coal. The Jurassic coal seam currently being mined is the best type of coal for industrial use, called industrial fine powder or world's finest power coal. As the saying goes, make use of the environment. For thousands of years, Datong, a city built on coal, has integrated coal into every aspect of the city's bloodline. From the local economy and employment to cooking and heating. However, as society develops and environmental awareness rises, the air pollution caused by coal burning has become an obstacle to Datong's green development. To address this, Datong has carried out a thorough coal revolution, investing significant funds and offering financial subsidies to encourage the public to shift away from their long-standing reliance on raw coal for cooking and heating, and adopt the cleaner, low-emission briquette coal. This move has greatly improved air quality and reduced the pollution caused by coal burning. In recent years, Datong has been actively adopting clean energy sources such as electricity, natural gas, and solar power to replace coal, completely improving the air quality. Because of the maintenance of the Yungang Grottoes, Datong has also undergone a transformation. This historical and cultural city was once the capital of the Northern Wei dynasty. Over 1,500 years ago, it was here in this city that Emperor Xiaowen of the Xianbei people, who was determined to unite different ethnic groups and transform his state into a Central Plain-style empire, along with his nominal grandmother, Empress Dowager Feng, carried out a series of reforms. Despite strong opposition from officials of their tribe, later, this emperor left Datong and moved to Luoyang, the center of Han culture. But Datong and Yungan had already left with a significant mark of the northern peoples' enthusiasm for absorbing foreign cultures and confidently reshaping their own identity. The people of Datong believe the art of Yungang Grotto and its historical value are worth sharing with the world. On December 14, 2001, Yungang Grottoes were officially listed as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, becoming the 28th Cultural Heritage Site in China. Compared to 40 years ago, today's Yungang Grottoes have undergone dramatic changes. The area of the scenic spot has expanded at least tenfold. The magnificent Yungang has seemingly returned. Lingyan Temple, also known as Shantang Water Palace, was a famous temple during the Northern Wei period. The famous geographer Li Daoyuan praised it in his commentary on the Water Classic, calling it grand and majestic, rare in the world. With mountains and water, incense rises from the temple. This temple, which only existed in written records, has been restored as accurately as possible. In addition to the temple, the new Yungang Grottoes scenic area also has newly built Lotus Avenue, Tongyao Square, and a museum. An entirely new scenic area of royal grotto temples, gardens, and ancient architectural complexes appears in the public eye. This brand new landscape has shocked the people of Datong. He Liu, a staff member at the Yungang Grottoes Research Institute, is currently touring the Yungang Grottoes with his classmate Tao Min. Tao Min, who grew up in Datong, went to university in another city and then worked locally for many years. During the National Day holiday, she returned home, found her old friend He Liu, and decided to visit Yungang Grottoes. The young woman, born and raised in Datong, did not recognize Yungang anymore.
She left for school and worked in another place for more than 10 years. She had been here since childhood, but had a negative impression of the place, so she never thought to return. However, after seeing it this time, she felt very proud and honored. Proud to be from Datong, and even prouder of Yungang Grottoes.
The changes Tao Min felt are the results of years of continuous conservation work on the Yungang Grottoes. Now, the protection of the grottos has entered a high-tech era. The monitoring system at Yungang Grottoes monitors routine meteorology and environment, as well as microenvironment, such as temperature, humidity, and also focuses on assessing cave-related issues, such as cracks, water seepage, unstable rock formations, and weathering conditions. In addition, the columns before the caves and eaves are monitored specifically. These monitoring methods are integrated, allowing the smallest changes in the grottos to be detected by conservation staff. One of the threats to the caves is condensation water, which usually forms when humid air inside the caves reaches the dew point in winter and condenses on the surface of the rock. Yungang Grottoes Research Institute and CUG has developed a device to measure rock surface condensation. This device solves the problem of measuring the formation patterns and quantity of condensation water, allowing conservation staff to take preventive measures, such as ventilation and dehumidification, before condensation reaches a dangerous level. This is the digital center of Yungang Grottoes. It is the youngest department of the Yungang Grottoes Research Institute, established last, and with the youngest average age of its staff. Using digital technology to protect cultural relics and preserve information about them is also a new genre in science. The Digital Center of Yungang Grottoes was founded in 2013, and one of its main goals is to use digital measurement to accurately record the condition of the grottos. Mapping the grottos has always been a challenge for traditional archaeology and cultural relic protection. Yungang Grottoes are high-relief caves. The thickness of the sculptures, materials used and their relationship to other parts of the cave. If there are cracks, where they are, and how deep they are. Said information was once only obtainable through manual mapping, which is less effective and accurate.
To more comprehensively and accurately record the current condition of the grottos. In 1986, the State Administration of Culture Heritage worked with CIGIS to carry out close-range photogrammetry on Yungang Grottoes. This high-precision digital acquisition marks the beginning of the digitalization of Yungang.
By the 1990s, the development of 3D laser scanning technology and digital photogrammetry techniques boomed. The techniques suitable for the digitalization of Yungang Grottoes matured.
We now achieve 0.03 mm resolution in data collection, meaning the distance between two laser points is just 0.03 mm. The accuracy of color now exceeds 90%.
The digital information and generated images, combined with microenvironment monitoring and damage sample analysis, have become the foundational data for cave conservation. In the past, weathering of the grottos could only be qualitatively described as fast or slow. With digital technology, data collected over the years has made our understanding of cave damage more specific. For example, the Yungang Grottoes Research Institute found through digital measurements done per year that after the construction of the eaves at the outer columns of Cave 9, the weathering rate decreased by 70%.
This is a significant and surprising result. This data will provide support for large-scale future construction of protective eaves. Such facilities would extend the lifespan of these cultural relics, enabling better preservation and transmission of cultural heritage.
A batch of building materials arrive at the institute. Zhang Shua, who is busy working, has always dreamed of finding a way to create 1:1 replicas of the Yungang Grottoes, and designing these replicas to be assembled and disassembled like building blocks. This would make it easier to exhibit the replicas abroad, allowing the world to witness the brilliance and diversity of traditional Chinese culture. Since 2015, Yungang Grottoes Research Institute and Busia have been working together on digital replicating of the grottos. This has brought Zhang Shua's dream closer to reality.
Since Yungang Grottoes are a World Heritage Site, it is a challenge to utilize the interdisciplinary expertise of Busia to achieve high precision and full-scale replicas of the grottos. This is an unprecedented task, both domestically and internationally.
3D laser scanning technology offers the advantage of massive data storage and high fidelity in recording the forms of grottos and murals. It allows for generating cross-sectional views from multiple directions, giving a comprehensive view of the caves.
This point is essentially a spatial coordinate point, defined by its x, y, and z coordinates, as well as RGB color values. Once we collect the three-dimensional point cloud data, we need to perform post-processing on it if we open the 3D model interface again. You can see a solid model. Compared to the earlier data, this is much more intuitive and impressive. It vividly recreates the facial features and structural characteristics of the Yungang Grottoes.
Collected data is processed to create a 3D model, which, when combined with 3D printing technology, can reproduce the caves with extreme precision. In 2016, the entire Yungang Grottoes, through 3D laser scanning and other technologies, were digitally recreated on computers. As an experiment in digital replication, a miniature version of the Retinue Buddha, from the east side of Cave 18 in the Yungang Grottoes, was created with 3D printing. The Yungang Grottoes, a magnificent and resplendent chapter in Chinese cave art, from the mid-5th to early 6th century AD, have been faithfully reproduced, using advanced technology. In this way, humanity has digitally preserved a piece of history forever. Beneath Wuzhou Mountain, the authentic Yungang Grottoes continue to awe and move us deeply. With its fusion of Eastern and Western elements, connecting North and South, it brings together influences from India, Central Asia, and China. The evolution of its sculptural art, from Hu style to Han style, opened the path for the Sinicization of Buddhist art, which deeply influenced other great artistic creations, like the Dunhuang and Longmen Grottoes. As royal grottos, Yungang carries strong political significance, reflecting an era of ethnic integration and cultural convergence. This era paved the way for the flourishing Tang dynasty. Yungang stands as a crystallization of the cultural exchange along the Silk Road. Through the power of life, passion, and faith, we learn from its unparalleled art, drawing inspiration from the past to shape our present.